President Donald Trump might not accept the results of the election if he loses. Take a look.
Win, lose, or draw in this election, will you commit here today for a peaceful transferal of power after the election? And there has been rioting in Louisville. There's been rioting in many cities across this country, red and your so-called red and blue states. Will you commit to making sure that there is a peaceful transferal of power after the election?
Well, we're going to have to see what happens. You know that I've been complaining very strongly about the ballots, and the ballots are a disaster.
I understand that, but people are rioting. Do you commit to making sure that there's a peaceful transferal of power?
We want to get rid of the ballots, and we'll have a very peaceful. There won't be a transfer, frankly. There'll be a continuation.
There won't be a transfer, a continuation. Now, look, he said, well, we want to get rid of the ballots, right? So, you know, those votes that you cast, he wants to get rid of them. Donald Trump wants to get rid of those ballots so there will not be a transfer of power, which means he continues to be president, even if it turns out that more people vote against him. It's not very democratic of him, but then again, when are Republicans ever are? I mean, look, in 2016, Donald Trump did not win the popular vote. He ended up getting the Electoral College. And so that's definitely another concern, another fear. But here's the thing. Here's the president saying, I'm not going to accept the results of the election. I'm just not. Well, you know what that is? That's a coup. There's no other way to put it. And so this is the nightmare scenario that we've been talking about, that we've been dreading all day. Okay. And now, again, we've been dreading it for a long time, actually. And now he literally confirms that, yeah, I mean, that's what we're going to do. We're going to steal the election. Throwing out the ballots during a pandemic where you're going to have a lot of people that are voting by mail, and those people are more likely to be Democrats because they want to avoid the coronavirus. Look, that's part of the plan, okay? And look, his followers are pushed into COVID denialism and to believe that there is rampant voter fraud. There's no evidence of that. But it does no good to show them the evidence that voter fraud is both incredibly rare and historically has had a negligible impact on elections, and the fact that COVID is something to worry about because, frankly, they don't give a shit. They don't really care about facts. Facts and logic bounce right off them like bullets to Superman's chest. They don't care. They want an authoritarian leader. You know, to show the libs who's boss. And that's it. And the irony, of course, is that the minorities and the poor will be hurt the most. If you are not a wealthy Christian white man, then you are fucked under what is coming if this is successful. Donald Trump, and this goes along with what he wants to do, admitted that he wants to fill Ruth Bader Ginsburg's seat before the election for the express purpose of challenging mail-in ballots so that he can get the Supreme Court to throw out those ballots so that he can win the election. That's what he's doing. In fact, this is a quote. He said, I think it's better if you go before the election because I think this scam that the Democrats are pulling, it's a scam. The scam will be before the United States Supreme Court. And, of course, he wants to make sure that he has a Republican supermajority, 6-3, in the Supreme Court, so that in case they lose maybe one of the other conservative, maybe lose John Roberts or something, that he can still end up getting a 5-4 decision and ultimately throw out those ballots so that he can continue to stay in power. And that's what this is. He said, I think having a 4-4 situation is not a good situation. If you get that, I don't know that you get that. I think it should be 8-0 or 9-0, again, into throwing out the ballots. But just in case it would be more political than it should be, because throwing out ballots for no reason, he says, well, you know, it's going to be political. No, it's not. No, it's not. He said, I think it's very important to have a ninth justice. Now there's more. The Atlantic's Barton Gellman details how the situation could play out. He said that Trump will first claim victory before the mail-in ballots are because they end up being counted slower than in-person election results. And so November 3rd, it looks like we have a situation where Donald Trump is winning because of all those votes coming in pro-Trump areas, and the mail-in ballots taking longer to come in because they take longer to count. Well, Donald Trump will say, well, look, I won. Well, I won re-election. Any other ballots that come in later, we're just going to throw them out because they're fake, they're fraud, they're not real. So that's it. That's it. I win. I win. He's going to circumvent those votes together. Not only that, altogether, but then also taking that narrative of me being ahead on election night, Donald Trump would basically call on Republican-controlled state legislators to appoint their state's electoral college votes to Donald Trump, which again circumvents the popular vote. It's not like they haven't relied on the electoral college to win. Pretty much every Republican in my lifetime has not won the popular vote, has relied on the electoral college to win because they have a demographic and population disadvantage. Now, is that unconstitutional? No, it turns out state legislatures have a loophole in the Constitution that allows them to ignore the voters and appoint any electors that they want to the Electoral College. So, respecting the results of the election for them is merely optional. And if you think Republicans are like, oh no, I could never do something like that, that is so out of the norm. If you think that, you haven't been paying attention. You don't know Republicans. All right, Mitch McConnell, who, by the way, put out a statement earlier saying, oh, we will respect the results of the election. Bullshit. Maybe you might, because in the long run, you're going to get your Supreme Court justice. And in the long run, because that's what Mitch McConnell's good at, playing the long game, he's going to continue to have that power through the Supreme Court. Donald Trump, of course, is only worried about the short term, worried about himself. So Mitch McConnell might just let him take a loss if it means McConnell continuing his power and getting that Supreme Court justice. But at the same time, do I really think that he would stop Donald Trump from doing that? Probably not. I don't think so. And again, speaking of norms, Mitch McConnell has destroyed the norms in the Senate, going back further than just his obstruction of Obama. Obama's picked Merrick Garland. But again, back in 2008 when he said, oh, I don't like you politically, so I'm just going to block everything that you can, that I can, that you put forward. Doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter if it's our healthcare plan, and we're still going to block it because, you know what? We want to make sure that you are a one-term president. In fact, in 2013 to 2014 alone, he used the filibuster a record 252 times. 252 times. Just in 1 year. Record obstruction. And that is, by the way, the last time the Democrats had the majority. And of course, Mitt Romney, Mr. Mittens himself, he's not doing anything to stop SCOTUS from being seated, allowing for Donald Trump to appoint somebody who would be a possible loyalist and possibly let Donald Trump steal democracy, full well knowing that this is a situation that could happen. Either he's stupid or complicit. I mean, there's basically two options for this, right? Either they've accepted this and are like, oh, yeah, we're fine with Donald Trump stealing democracy as long as we continue to stay in power. Or they're like, oh, my God, Donald Trump would never do such a thing. And then we'll sit there in awe as Donald Trump does the exact thing that they said he would never happen. And speaking of complicity, by the way, you've got the media. Media is absolutely complicit. Obviously, Fox News, who's been laying the groundwork for this for a while, talking about voter fraud all the time, and talking about how we need to fill that seat. The libs are coming after Donald Trump, and et cetera, right? But what about mainstream media? Mainstream media hasn't really called out Republicans for their complicity when it comes to Donald Trump. Sure, they're doing a decent job of going after Donald Trump now, but what about the Republicans who support Donald Trump? They don't go after him very often. Not at all. And again, Republican politicians, as I said before, they only care about their own power. They're authoritarians. They want to protect their own power. They want to protect their majorities. wherever they have them, protect themselves, and of course their wealth. I keep telling you, this is actually really important. This election is important, and I know the media says that a lot, and it really comes back to bite us in the ass. But it's never really been as true as it is now. You got to think of it kind of like whenever the media, for example, back in 2012, oh my God, this is the most important election ever. It's sort of like the boy who cried wolf, right? Most important election in history, Romney versus Obama. Oh, wait a minute, they have the same healthcare plan. How exactly were they that different? Like, okay, they had differences on tax policy and some basically mundane, arcane things like that. But this literally is like fascism versus democracy. He just said, I might not accept election results, and it's not the first time he has said that before. And Republicans, and here's the thing, here's how we can theoretically beat this, right? Republicans are hinging on this being a close enough election because Joe Biden does not have enthusiasm behind him that they can basically steal it and justify it, which is why it's got to be a blowout. Look, I don't really want to vote for Biden, but it's not even about Biden anymore, really. This could be any random Democrat in that spot. And they still end up being better than Donald Trump because at least they believe in democratic norms. Because what this is, it's not even about red versus blue. It's not really about liberalism versus conservatism. What this is basically an attempted fascist coup in this country. Will democracy triumph, or is this the beginning of some real dark times? What happens in November is basically going to decide the future of this country in some very fundamental ways.